My name is Frederico Links, and I am a researcher with the Institute for Public Policy Research, as well as a member of the working group of the Access to Information, the Action Coalition in Namibia. The Access to Information Act that was passed in 2022 is important because for the first time we have a framework that gives life to the freedom of information of Namibians, and that speaks to the constitutionally protected right of freedom of expression. And now what the law will allow, once fully implemented, is it will allow Namibians, it will allow the media, it will allow civil society in general to be able to more formally access information that is held by not only government entities but by private entities that also hold the information of Namibian citizens. So in that regard, this framework gives life and allows Namibians to live out freedom of information. It is hard to say where Namibia will be in 2030. I mean, we have to be careful to to place too much on one framework, and realize that it's not just one law or one framework that will make a difference in terms of improving governance, improving service delivery, because ultimately that's what access to information is about in the context that we're talking about. If you look at, for instance, the Sustainable Development Goals framework, and how access to information is considered and promoted as sort of a requisite, as fundamental to sustainable development, then that's what we're talking about. So once this framework, this access to information framework, along with other frameworks that also deal with the issue of access to, or enhance or enliven the access to information, it should, produce a culture, a landscape that is welcoming of not only granting people access to information they need for their own personal development, for their community development, for national development, but also a culture of openness in government, a culture of transparency within authorities that are tasked with delivering services to the public, and a culture of responsiveness, because that's ultimately what access to information is about when we talk about it in the context of sustainable development, which really should be the context that we focus on. Personally, for me, in the work that I do, I mean, access to information, the potential impacts of access to information and being able to use the law once it's and the regulations once fully implemented, would be that hopefully it would make getting hold of documentation, because I'm in the research work that I do, the policy related work that I do, and even in the journalistic work that I do, it's all up to this point. It's been a struggle to get hold of documentation, of official records, of historical data and so forth, and even current data. And hopefully what this will do is inspire a new culture of how especially government entities collect, store and archive data and information that people like me, researchers or journalists, can then access much more easily than it's been possible to do up to this point. Access to information is important for democracy and good governance in the sense that it is a transparency mechanism that comes with an accountability mechanism. And by that I mean that if the public, if the media, if civil society have access to information, there is some sort of public oversight, outside government public oversight possible, that allows for scrutiny of what's happening within government, at whichever level that is, whether it's central government level, whether it's local government level, whether it's state-owned enterprises. Access to information allows that sort of oversight of what's happening in terms of governance of the state, and of course then that comes with a way of holding office holders, decision makers, political office bearers accountable for their actions and for their decision making. So in that sense, access to information is important for transparent, for holding government accountable for what it does. Access to information when it comes to the informational needs of marginalized groups. I mean, what it does broadly is if there's information that affects people, say at grassroots levels, at communities at the margins, what access to information really, I mean, a meaningful access to information should do is make information more readily available to people, to communities who, in the absence of it, have struggled to get information that speaks to their needs, to their circumstances, and in this way, now there would be an improvement in terms of the accessibility of information that speaks specifically to the informational needs and demands of marginalized groups and communities. Having this change in culture in sort of the state structures, where they now have to be more responsive and more proactive in terms of producing and disseminating information. I mean, this just opens sort of the gates, I wouldn't say floodgates, but it opens the gates for the media having access to a larger volume of information about, for instance, marginalized groups and communities and individuals. And in that way, the media then can use that information to address the situation that some of these groups find themselves in more adequately than the media sector has been able to do up to this point. So hopefully all of this translates to once fully implemented, this law translates to a growing culture of informational use and transparency and just greater interaction with information, wherever that information may flow and how it is used and so forth. And certainly, I mean, I think it will be a cultural change, not just in the state, but in the private sector, in civil society, because we all will have to abide by what's captured in the law and regulations, and we all will be subject to this law and its regulations, as the public will be able to demand information from us, even in civil society, even in the media. So you'd like to see a general culture of openness, of transparency, spread throughout the society, hopefully. So yes, I mean, I think that really is what we're looking at, if we embrace what this law and its regulations really encapsulate.